So the title of this presentation, as you can see, is Healthy Relationships and Boundaries. And the thing I like about this presentation, sometimes people divide out work, sometimes they divide out our personal lives, but this is definitely for at work and at home. And I love that. So what you learned today, you will be able to help you really build healthy relationships. And we'll talk about trust and cooperation as we move along here. So, here's my name. We've got Renee, we've got Bridget, Downey. We're the presenters here today. And so the agenda, I'm going to talk about trust and cooperation. And then number 2, healthy relationship behaviors and impacts on mental health. And then I'm going to turn it over to Renee and Bridget to round out the presentation. So let me get started here. When we look at let's start with these basics. I love the way this is put together. And I love, I love talking about trust and cooperation, and that little side box. Without trust, you can never have a happy relationship. So this is definitely a presentation that is going to focus on how you build trust and how you evolve and create healthy relationships. And, I'm going to tell you, it's a process in my experience. And I love this about the presentation. When you build trust, have healthy relationships, you can evolve an incredible amount of cooperation, work together at home or on the job, and make big and meaningful things happen. So you think about that flow. The trust leads to healthy relationships, which leads to cooperation and making big things happen. I love that concept. So let's take some basics here again. What is trust? And, when you look at the active feeling of trust is a confidence in a relationship or in leadership and its reliability. You can count on it. There's that confidence that I'm in this relationship, or I have a supervisor or leadership on a job that I believe in and I can count on them. So there's confidence in that. And so a passive feeling would be an absence of suspicion or worry. And I'm going to say right now, that to me is very powerful. When I look at the amount of people that are sometimes on a job or in a relationship and they're not sure what's going on, they have some worries or concerns about things that are happening, and they don't have that confidence. So it's great. You can feel this if you're in a relationship, that passive feeling of not having to worry, not having to be suspicious. There's a confidence in that good things are going to happen, and it's functional. So it's a firm reliance on the integrity and ability of a person or thing. I'm seeing right in here, I'm seeing reliability, reliance. Those are strong and powerful words and conditions that are healthy. So an assured reliance on character, strength, ability, or truth of someone. I mean, that's a high standard, and it's a great standard, to be able to rely on someone's character. I mean, that's a separate presentation in and of itself. Their strength, their abilities, and their truth. So, and really, trust is the cornerstone of all healthy relationships, home or work. So when we trust, let's put this into some action. We are able to predict what others will do and what situations will occur. There's there's some peace about that, to be able to know and be able to successfully predict the behaviors of others and what situations you might find yourself in. We feel safe in the present and are able to then plan for the future. make plans where we feel safe. So we allow others to know our vulnerabilities. And I mean, I'm not tell you, I want to hold a second on that. You know, sometimes when people are vulnerable, they kind of hide that, and they don't feel comfortable letting somebody know. But when you're in a trusting relationship, you don't mind opening up and letting someone know about your vulnerabilities, your weaknesses, you know, what your concerns are. And you can also expect, when you have a person or a work group that you trust, you can expect that they will not take advantage of your vulnerabilities. They are going to be more likely to help you, support you, and help eliminate or soothe those vulnerabilities. And you know, when you're in this kind of a when there's trust, let's get real, we feel driven to contribute. You know, I trust this group, I trust this relationship, I want to be involved in it, I want to help promote it and make it the best it can be, so that we are driven to contribute and keep it healthy and productive. So, you know, I want to talk a little bit about commonalities and connectivity. You know, I look at a lot of this as building blocks, like we talked about, the building trust. How do you build it? How do you evolve it? And so, you know, let's talk about commonalities. When we're looking at maybe getting into a relationship, who do we want to be in relationship? You know, so a lot of times people that come together and connect, they find some commonalities. There's something in common. So the commonalities can be traits, ideas, experiences, what someone's interested in, what their values are, and you know, and they're in common with yours. And with that, you can begin to talk about those commonalities, build on them, and evolve, begin the evolvement of a healthy relationship. The connectivity piece, connection, develops out of these commonalities. Think about that. You have commonalities, you start to approach, talk to each other, build on those, and then you begin to connect. And you know, I always talk in that resiliency presentation about initially being a little cautious, and then get to know someone through these commonalities, and then evolve that trust. Sometimes people want to jump right in, trust right away. There is an evolution piece to this, and it's important to keep that in mind. So commonalities, connectivity leads to increased communication. And, you know, healthy communication, effective communication is a key piece of evolving trust, building healthy relationships, as well as rapport in the family or with your team at work. So these increase our ability to work together and, you know, work together with others. You know, it builds that teamwork mindset. We're a team, one fight. So let's talk a little bit about some keys to effective and successful communication. It's important to express your thoughts clearly. You know, I just did a presentation the other day about being assertive in your communication style, your behavior pattern, and not be aggressive. Don't be passive. But, you know, assertive people, they can express their thoughts clearly. They don't mind laying it out there. They feel comfortable doing that. They're going to use timing and that kind of thing when they talk, but they don't leave any, they don't let any, there's nobody has to mind read, you know, so you want to make sure people understand what you are thinking, make sure they understand it. It involves active listening, good observation skills, written and verbal skills, not just verbal, but writing as well. And, you know, nonverbal communication. I saw some data the other day, 90% of communication is nonverbal. You know, so we need to be alert and hone our skills on maybe reading people and not guessing about that. But if we see something, not be afraid to explore that and open up and make sure people are comfortable, or you understand maybe what that nonverbal communication, are they interested in listening to me? They look like they're agitated, whatever, look at it and maybe feel comfortable exploring that. There's a direct correlation between the level of group communication and trust, cooperation, and resolution of conflicts. So I want you to think about that a minute. This direct correlation, when there's the communication, if it's healthy, it's effective, it's successful, it helps people understand what's going on, and that definitely evolves trust in a group, cooperation in a group, and it also definitely, research shows, reduces potential conflicts. Everybody's on the same page. They understand what's going on. If somebody doesn't, they take the time to make sure they do explain it fully. And, that heads off conflicts, really. People understand what's going on. So, the bottom line is good things come from interaction. We're meant to talk, we're meant to interact, and it needs to be healthy and done in an appropriate way so we can continue to work toward building these healthy relationships. So a little bit about active listening. Just some tips here. It's always good to acknowledge what you are hearing, maybe by paraphrasing what the person said, using some reflection and say, hey, if I hear you, I believe you're saying this, paraphrase what they said, and let it, there's nothing better than being heard. I can tell you right now, that can be a trigger when people feel like I'm not understood, no one's listening to me. So the more we active listen, let people know we hear what they're saying, and then maybe even show interest by asking more information. I mean, that's showing some curiosity. I want to ask a little more about that. That's interesting. Tell me more, and maybe ask some point blank questions to help increase your knowledge about what they're saying. And again, ask those clarifying questions. If you don't understand something, you're a little confused, make sure you put that on the table and ask, hey, look, I want to make sure I understand this. Would you mind, explain that again? And just try to make, in a healthy relationship, people are going to want to be heard. They're going to want to be understood. So that should not be a problem. And again, recognize that nonverbal communication, if you see something and you need to explore it, explore it. But please always know this, show interest in understanding and fully understanding and not jumping to any conclusions. So sometimes people hear something, they think they know what somebody's going to say, they jump on it. Always lay back, listen, take it all in, make sure you understand what's going on, show an interest in understanding what they're saying, what they're trying to communicate, and not jump to conclusions or try to over talk the person. Let them talk and listen. I mean, that's one of the biggest relationship builders there is to actively listen and let someone be heard and understood. I mean, I got to repeat that. So trust develops when there is an opportunity to talk. And here on the sidebar, I always look, here it is right here, the flow, building relationships. When you build these healthy relationships, it evolves trust. And then when you evolve that trust and you're in a relationship, you can cooperate and big things can happen. So, keep that in mind. Trust develops when there's an opportunity to talk. Always let members and partners know their input is valued. We want to hear from you. We appreciate what you said. And, if someone's laying low, so to speak, and they're not involved, try to involve them. Let them know, we want to hear from you. I want to hear from you. It's important to this relationship and what we're trying to do. Successful teams rely on and count on each other. I call that accountability. And there's an equation for that, man. It involves this relationship, trust, and cooperation. And it involves that teamwork too. Teams recognize and pool talents. They know who's there, what their strengths are. They also help them build some strengths, but they know what they have as far as talent in their group. So they recognize and pool talents, energy, and resources of individuals. And they do this to make decisions and accomplish goals, make healthy, wise decisions, and accomplish unbelievable difference-making goals. Always recognize the strengths of team members and partners. Always recognize that. Always take the time to tell people about their strengths and how much you appreciate them and who they are. So let's talk a little bit about collaboration. You know, when groups or people come together to make big things happen. And so collaboration and keys to great relationships. Only share a problem if you offer possible solutions. I want you to think about that a minute. Let's say we're at work or we're in a relationship. Sometimes people come in and say, hey, this isn't working. I don't like this, but it isn't clear what's going on. So if the way something's flowing at work, a policy or the way something's being done isn't working, use those analytical skills. Think about another way this could be done, not to try to override management or override a relationship, but it's okay to offer possible solutions. If something doesn't seem to be working, it's a problem. A lot of times people want to keep moving forward without addressing those problems. Put it on the table, but also try to offer possible solutions. Never blame others for your mistakes. You know, if you make a mistake, own it. And in a healthy group, let's get real. Nobody's going to hang on that. Okay, appreciate that stuff happens. Let's correct, let's fix it, and let's move forward. We're a team, one fight. Skip the blame, skip blaming. Never ambush or surprise others. You know, there's you don't want to come into a group or in a family or at home and just so jump all over somebody and surprise them. Ask for a time to talk. Say you've got something you want to share. Healthy relationships, people should sit, listen, and want to understand. You should never have to come in and ambush somebody with what you're feeling. So always share credit and recognition for accomplishments and ideas. Man, if somebody's done something great, share the credit. If it's a team, always talk about the team. If it's a family, talk about the family. It's not about one person, it's about the group. So, and I love this piece here. Always help others to succeed. You know, understand them, look at areas they need to grow in, or if they express that, help them learn, grow, evolve, and succeed. So let's talk a little bit here in part 2, healthy relationship behaviors and impact on mental health. Now, look, I know I'm doing a lot of talking and training. You typically do a presentation. At the end, we're going to have time to talk and ask questions and explore some of this more. So I appreciate you, you know, going with the flow here. So healthy relationship behaviors and impact on mental health. You know, this is some interesting data here. Strong social relationships increase the likelihood of survival by 50%, regardless of age, sex, or health status. And, you know, I love it when research shows things. I love looking at research because typically it's evidence-based. It's been a study, and for the most part, you can count on it. So 20% to 43% of adults over age 60 experience frequent or intense loneliness. Now, you know, we're using this information to talk about the value and importance of being in relationship, building healthy relationships. And, you know, social isolation is out there for people. So locally, 19% of those surveyed by the Fauquier Free Clinic interacted with somebody who cared about them less than once a week over the past year. And so in this little chart here, changes in loneliness and social contact among adults age 50 to 80, and we're looking at 2018, 2020. Pretty interesting information here. You know, it felt a lack of companionship. October 2018, 34%. When we get to 2020, that increased to 41%. Felt isolated from others, 27% 2018, 56% in 2020 felt isolated from others. And here we're doing a talk about the value and importance and benefits of healthy relationships. So when you had infrequent social contact, 28% in 2018, 46% in 2020. You know, that it's upsetting and it's staggering, that information. So this is one of the reasons we're doing this presentation as well. So benefits of relationships. Healthy relationships are protective and buffer against stress and disease. You know, when you're in a healthy relationship, you feel good. You feel healthy inside. You feel like opening up. You know, you'll be listened to. You'll be heard. If you have a difficulty, you know that you can come to this individual and put it on a table, and you know you will get some support to listen, understand, and try to help. You know, so that can affect our stress, our anxiety, mental health issues, and disease. Relationships can help us to thrive in adversity. Same mindset. I have some adversity going on. I have challenges. I may have a shattering event. And the value of having healthy relationships can counter the adverse impact of whatever has gone on. You know, you'll have someone who can help you, support you, who will listen to you. What are you feeling? What are you experiencing? I care. And so too few or poor quality social connections are associated with increased depression, suicide risk, and accelerated cognitive decline. Now, look, I told you I'm a prevention manager, and a big part of my work is to help people who, you know, you want to avoid people becoming depressed. You want to prevent thoughts of suicide, suicidal behaviors, and you want to do all you can to help people not decline cognitively and a lot more. But a way to do that, a great protective factor, is building these healthy relationships that can help you thrive. So benefits of a social support network. And here you go. The value, healthy relationships, a social support network improves your ability to cope with stressful situations. It increases these positive emotions like feelings of joy and happiness. I love that word joy, to be joyful, unbelievable emotion. Promotes lifelong good mental health, reduces anxiety, prevents depression, physical health, mental health, enhances self-esteem. You know, and I'm going to tell you, people who have solid self-esteem, self-confidence, they feel good about themselves. You know, when you don't have these networks that help promote this connectiveness and support you, it can work on your self-esteem and your confidence. They are tied together big time. So healthy relationships definitely enhance self-esteem and self-confidence, lowers cardiovascular risks, such as lowering blood pressure, promotes healthy lifestyle behaviors. You know, you're around healthy people, you have this healthy relationship, you can join together, do things, walk on and on and on. And it encourages adhering to a treatment plan. You know, when people are in distress or they have a problem, mental health, substance abuse, research is very clear. When they have family who care, relationship people who care, they are more likely to follow through with treatment, initiate treatment, and follow through. So it helps big time. So 5 aspects of thriving. I mentioned the word thriving. With that resiliency, you always talk about thriving. And and thriving is different from surviving. Let's get real about that. So 5 aspects of thriving: happiness and life satisfaction, having purpose and meaning in life, and progressing toward meaningful life goals. All these 2 right here, big time, are about resiliency and these life skill trainings that we're doing, decision making, take stress management, all that stuff. So psychological well-being, and in parentheses, you see positive self-regard. I mean, when you could talk positively about yourself, pat yourself on the back, I mean, that's self-esteem, self-confidence. That's not walking around bragging. It's saying, hey, I feel good about this. I did good with that. You're doing well. Absence of mental health concerns. That's psychological well-being. Social well-being, deep and meaningful human connections, relationships, meaningful. Building these healthy, supportive relationships, faith in others and humanity, positive interpersonal expectancies, and then physical well-being, healthy weight and activity levels, health status above expected baselines. Now, let's how do we foster healthy connections? I like the laying this stuff out and talk about how you do it. So set aside time to talk. If you're in a relationship, or it's at home or on a job, set aside, supervision on some jobs, staff meetings, or just going in and talking with staff or one another. At home, set a time where we're going to talk to make those meaningful connections. How was your day? What are you feeling? What's going on? Work as a team. You build that team, you can count on one another. You're there for one another, and you feel part of something that's wonderful. It feels fantastic. Practice gratitude. Always give thanks, and you can do that in a multitude of ways. But show your gratitude. Practice it. Do it. Create meaningful rituals. I like these routines and rituals at work. If they're meaningful, it becomes part of the operation or your relationship. Do them, stick to them. If they need to be modified, fine and dandy, but have those rituals and routines that work and create that joy, happiness, peacefulness. Do something novel, do something different, make a plan to get out, try something new, and think about it. I like people who are analytical. Don't just jump and run. Think about things you can do, plan it, knock it out. So increasing your social network, volunteer for a cause you support. There's a lot of opportunities for volunteering out there. Faith groups, help with the donation drive or join a Bible study. Join a gym or fitness group. Take a class to connect with others who share similar hobbies, interests, or pursuits. We're going to have some more of these trainings. Make sure you attend these in the future. Mental Health Association, RRCS, we've teamed up. They'll be advertised. And there are other classes, in your communities. Join a support group. Social networking sites can connect you with friends and family. Support groups offer help in stressful times, such as chronic illness, loss of a loved one, a new baby, a divorce. There are support groups out there. Explore where they are. I can tell you, I do one myself. It's on the 3rd Monday of each month at 7:00. Right now it's virtual. We're trying to get back to face-to-face, but it's a Survivors for Life support group through Team Jordan, a coalition I work with. I facilitate it as prevention manager for RRCS, but it's for those who have lost a loved one to suicide. And, so they come together, they connect and give each other support. So volunteer opportunities are some listed here. Remington Community Garden, outstanding. I love that. And Fauquier Fish, Fauquier Fresh, Fauquier Habitat for Humanity, Aging Together, the Culpeper Literacy Council, Fauquier Community Theater. Find more at Let's Volunteer. Now, look, we've got a lot of coalition groups around. We've got Healthy Culpeper, Partnerships for Community Resources, Bath Foundation, Mental Health Association. There's a lot of groups that are involved with community partners. So there are a lot of volunteer opportunities out here now. That's prevention work at its finest. Get involved. Let's do it together. So I'm gonna stop. No, I'm going to keep moving this for you. I'm going to turn it over at this time to Renee and Bridget. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you, Alan.
Thank you, Alan.
You're welcome. And thank you for having me. And I'm glad everybody's here. Thank you.
And so great that you gave, all that information about trust and cooperation and how to start those relationships. I think we need to really look at, finding that joyful relationship, finding ways. And a lot of people are kind of stymied by that. So when, Alan was talking about, volunteering, I'd encourage you, yes, volunteer, but try to do it regularly. So I have a friend of mine who was trying to find more, sort of to meet new people because, as we were growing up, think about it, when you were little, you got to meet people in your class, right? And you were kind of forced to become like friendly. And then maybe you had new people come into your class. And so it was sort of like you were always meeting new people. I worked before this with high school students. And for some of those high school students, they had gone to school since they were in kindergarten together. And so part of their anxiety when they were graduating is they were going out to new places. And they were like, I don't know if I know how to make friends anymore, right? So think about us now that we're even further along than just high school students. How do we do that? And so I think sort of putting ourselves out there by doing things that you like. So if it's volunteering, my friend who wanted to sort of expand her friend group actually went down to Hope Heals, or I think that's what it's called. But anyway, it's, a wonderful thrift shop. And she just started volunteering for a couple hours a week at the same time. Well, it turned out the other people on her shift also had signed up for the same time. And so it allowed them to become more friendly. And so as we're expanding our, friend network, or even looking at the, the support system we currently have, we also have to talk a little bit about boundaries. And I know Heather was sharing earlier. Alan, if you could go to the next slide. About supporting herself and, getting out of an unhealthy relationship. And so I love this picture of this fence because, of course, fences are boundaries, but this fence also has a gate in it. And so what we need to do, we need to, fences make great neighbors. Fences can also make great friends. If you kind of think of a series of circular gates, right, or fences. And as you start making friends with people, you, of course, are not going to throw everything that's in your head and everything that's ever happened to you when you meet somebody in the first 5 minutes, right? A lot of times that doesn't really lead to great friendships. And so really knowing who you are and then slowly letting people sort of inside each of the things. Because there are some people that will always maybe stay outside gate 3. Others might move into gate 2. And then there are probably just a few people that are going to be all the way, into gate 1. Okay. And that's healthy. If anyone's ever said, well, you're holding back on me, think about that. It's like, okay, wait a second. So I am not comfortable yet sharing everything with you, but you want me to share everything right now. We need to find people who are going to support us feeling comfortable, us being willing to share as we become more comfortable. And so part of those things that we need to look at is, what is going to help us determine when to let people in the next gate. Alan, if you can go to the next, please. Okay, so these are the types of boundaries, right? And so sometimes we just think of, oh, we have boundaries, but think about it. I don't know how you all were growing up about like sharing your stuff, right? Sometimes it was okay. I remember in college, it was okay for anyone, like for my roommate, to borrow, my shoes or, milk or whatever. But I had things that, I will be honest, Pop-Tarts, those were my, like, when everything was going bad that day, Pop-Tarts was my go-to. I knew that if I came home, I could have a Pop-Tart and everything would be okay, right? Well, one time my roommate ate my last Pop-Tart. And, people who know me know that I don't get angry that often, but that just threw me through the roof. And she was like, why are you getting so upset? And I was like, because this is my thing that I don't share. And it's okay to have things that you don't share. Okay. I remember growing up, when my children were growing up, it was always like, you have to share, you have to share. It's okay not to share everything. Okay. As long as it isn't, sometimes there are things that are going on in your head that's important to share because it could make you sick. So, understand there are people that you can share those with. Okay, so those are material boundaries. When we talk about physical boundaries, people have personal space. And if you've taken, an adult mental health or a youth mental health first aid class, you've heard this from me before. If you walk up to somebody to talk to them and they take a step back, understand they do not want to start dancing with you, right? They don't want you to follow them. It's because you're in their personal space. All right. And so you have to just give them the space. And then as you become more comfortable together, they might lessen that space. All right. But it's fine. And also, that idea we have, especially, I'll talk about, kids growing up, because this is where we get these ideas of boundaries. How many times did your mother or father or somebody close to you say, well, go give your aunt a kiss or go hug so-and-so? And you were like, no. And of course, yes, you have to. That really isn't a healthy thing to teach. You want your children, you want people to feel comfortable. So if they're comfortable going up and giving their aunt a hug, that's fabulous. But if they need maybe time to come to room temperature, we need to let them do that. Okay. When we talk about mental boundaries, here for the past couple of years, there's been a very big sort of dichotomy in belief. It's either like you believe what I believe or you don't believe what I believe. And that's not healthy, right? We need to be able to freely share our opinions. And then how Alan talked about active listening? When we share our opinions, we also have to sit back and then actively listen to hear about somebody else's, right? We want to have that discussion. Just because you don't believe the color of the sky is blue, doesn't mean you need to fight about it, right? It can just be, oh, they just perceive that color differently than I do. Understanding boundaries with your faith. Is it okay for somebody that you interact with not to believe in God? Things like that. When we talk about emotional boundaries, you need to be responsible for your own feelings, right? I am not responsible for anyone's other feelings except myself, right? I can't make anyone else happy. If you're trying to make somebody happy, understand that you might as well give up now. Okay. You are responsible for your own emotions. Whoever is around you is responsible for theirs. And I will tell you that if somebody tells you that it's your job to make them happy, then I'd encourage you to close that gate, right? Put out that boundary, because that's just going to drain your energy and you're going to be like climbing a mountain. You're never going to get to the top two, right? But really own your own emotions. And sometimes when you're going along, all of a sudden you might have an emotion that you weren't expecting, right? And all of a sudden I'd say, stop. Okay, let's feel that emotion and figure out, is this a trigger? What's happening? Because the more you understand your own emotions, the easier it is to get in these relationships, right? Sexual boundaries, what is your comfort level? I have friends who are totally against PDA, no public displays of affection. That just sends them off. And other people who it's like they're one being as they're sitting next to you, they're all on top of you, connected. And so, I always call those people puppies. They like to be on top of each other. Understand those sexual boundaries are healthy, right? And the minute you start feeling stress about them, understand that person is trying to invade your boundaries. And for digital boundaries, that's probably the newest category of boundaries. And thinking about those, you want to make sure that people are comfortable with you posting information or pictures about them. Just like those people around you should be, ask you if it's okay if they post this to social media. You want, because social media goes everywhere. And, in dire situations, there are some people that are, out of unhealthy relationships and might not want the presence on digital media because they're hiding from someone, right? So we don't want to put them in a position that's going to cause them further stress. Okay. All right, next, Alan. So how do you find them? I think paying attention to your gut is a great thing. All right. Knowing what you're responsible for. So as I've said, you are responsible for yourself. Okay. Maybe if you have small children, you have a responsibility to, to take care of them, to sort of help raise them, to help them become their own people. But you are responsible for yourself and how you interact in relationships and what you say and what you do. If you're a trustworthy person, right? All these things are what you're responsible for yourself. Okay. We cannot control anyone else. I always love when I was working as a counselor, I would have clients that would get involved in relationships and they'd start saying, well, I'm really working on, I'm going to make up a name. I'm really working on Dan. As soon as Dan, actually starts, picking up around the house, our relationship is going to be so much better. And I would say, understand you can't change Dan. Only Dan can. And I'm not sure this relationship is really going where you want it to go if this is what we're going to do. Because after Dan learns that, then what is the next thing you're going to try to change? Okay, so we have to accept people where they are. Now, that doesn't mean that people won't change. Okay, but we need to understand that what they're giving us is where they are right now. And so even if they're cute or even if they have a nice smile, you need to have the person you want to have a friendship with and all that, accept them for right where they are. Okay. We can't control how people react to what we do or say. We can control how we react. Understand that things coming out of our mouths and other people's mouths are all about them, right? And how they're currently experiencing life. So getting upset because somebody says something is just, for me, it's giving emotion away, giving your energy away. If I have somebody in my life who is continually negative and continually sort of throwing off on me, I won't continue that relationship for long because it's not helping either of us. Okay, and we also can't control the outcome. I have to laugh because when COVID first happened, right, in March, I went home and I did every project. There are probably 6 projects that I had on the back burner forever, like cleaning out this closet, doing all this. And for some reason, I thought that if I did all my projects perfectly and had my house perfectly cleaned and all that, that COVID would go away, right? Preposterous idea. But anyway, we cannot control the outcome of any situation. We can control how we act, how we feel, what our actions are. Alan? So in defining your boundaries, we need to honor yourself, right? And sometimes, and I'd encourage you all to do this, is just get out of a piece of paper and say, what are my boundaries? And I will tell you, it's hard. It's hard unless you start saying, okay, when do I feel the most uncomfortable? What makes me uncomfortable? And then when you ferret out those, you figure out where your boundaries are, right? You also, for some people who are introverts, they need that alone time. Having a boundary about alone time is fabulous, okay? If you're a people person who gets your energy from being around people, understanding that that is there as well, okay? It's also fine to, have a boundary where you're like, okay, if I'm in a friendship or relationship and things aren't going well, I can take a step back. I can put up a boundary until I figure out what's going on. Okay. Alan, next. And so here are 10 steps. We talked a little bit about this already. You want to list your most important priorities. What does that mean? Could mean anything from, I want to have more people that matter in my life. That could be, I want to do my job better. Now, I caution you on that, because what we don't want to do is get into perfectionism. That's just a drain. But, doing your job better, I want to interact better with the people at work. All right. Again, we're talking the next one, paying attention to your gut feeling. We are amazing people. And we actually know, very rarely do we get into a situation where your spidey senses weren't going, and so pay attention to that. Remember when those instances happened and what was going on. Understand that you are responsible for your own needs. All right. That is your first priority. That is not being selfish. That is not being self-absorbed. Okay. And I encourage you also to say no. I encourage you to practice saying no. Oops. There we go. And so I encourage you, the next time somebody asks you to do something, even if you could do it, just say no. Don't have to justify it. Don't have to say, oh, but I'll try to do it later. No. And see how that feels. You're taking control over your time and your efforts. Now, if it's something late, after you say no and you practice this, you can go back to them a couple hours later and say, hey, I was just practicing saying no. Understand next time when I say no, I really mean it, but I'd be happy to help you with that. But until we start practicing saying no with people we're really comfortable with, we won't be able to say no to people we aren't as comfortable with. Okay. I want you to use I statements. Okay. Those things like I noticed, or I am feeling uncomfortable, and so now I am going to leave. When you say things like this, I feel, okay? So it isn't like you are always putting me down, right? When you say this, I don't like how I feel, okay? Next. Apologizing. Guess what? Nobody really believes anyone apologizing anyway. Right? If somebody comes late to a meeting and somebody says, I am so sorry I'm late, does it really make you feel better that they're late? No. Should you still do it? Sure, but not excessively. Say it once. Okay? Know your boundaries and be consistent, because what I'll tell you is as you start putting in these boundaries in place, people are going to start to push on these boundaries because they aren't used to them. It's like, the little kid who keeps poking you and you're finally like, what? Right? That's what they're going to do to these boundaries, because they want to see, they aren't used to them. It's a change. They want to see if you're really going to stick to them. And it's hard at first, but that's why you really have to know your boundaries and then take a stand. So if your boundary is, I'm not going to let people talk down to me, and you're maybe that's something that your cousins always do. And so you're at a restaurant with your cousins and they start putting you down. You can just say, hey, I decided for myself that I'm not going to remain with people, in places where people are putting me down. So I'm going to leave. Now you can give them a warning and say, I'm really working on this. And so I've decided I'm not going to, stick around. And if they keep going, then get up and leave. The trick is to just keep going. right? They're going to want to keep draw. Oh, we were just kidding. Oh, no. Just say, no, I'm taking care of myself. And it might take a couple times for that to change, but understand people have a hard time changing. And so there is going to be a little storming when people are changing. And then if you really want to set these boundaries and really want to have healthy relationships, and you've tried all these different things and you're still having trouble, I'd encourage you to seek professional help, see a counselor or a life coach to help them sort of support you as you make these changes. Next. So we talked a little bit about barriers. Sometimes it's hard to set these boundaries and then keep up with them. And things can impact that, like trauma or being in abusive relationships or having depression or anxiety. So we have to practice. And it might be that we set a small boundary first. Think about something that always is like a pet peeve, right? Think about something you can set a small boundary to practice before we set larger boundaries. Because as you have success setting boundaries, and also as Alan said, about self-esteem, it's okay to pat yourself on the back, right? We don't want to hold ourselves to this perfect standard. We know we're growing, whatever age, we are always growing. So setting those boundaries in a sort of progressive way can also work. Next. All right, and now Bridget will go and talk about the importance of self-love.
Okay, thanks, Renee. That was great.
Yeah, thanks, Renee.
So, coming out of the pandemic, we all had a lot of time to sit and be with ourselves and reflect on, our lives. Everything's kind of come to a halt. And when we're doing that, we want to kind of take time and remember the importance of loving ourselves, because criticism of ourselves is just kind of contagious, and it will erode your self-confidence and lead to things like, just accepting things because they make us feel good at the moment. And we want to keep building in positive ways. So, and one way to do that is by practicing self-love and self-compassion. And I want to cover some information on that in these slides. So why self-love and compassion? It's because perfectionism is bad for your health. There is no such thing as perfectionism. We all have a path in life, and it can be wavy at times, and we're all learning and growing. And because when we criticize ourselves, it chips away at our self-worth and makes us unhappy. So Dr. Kristen Neff is one of the leading scholars in this field of positive psychology, self-love, and compassion. And she said that love, connection, and acceptance are your birthright. So again, the pandemic has prompted the need to adapt and adjust to the larger human experience. We've all had to stop and kind of adjust and, change our goals and adapt to what's going on. And we can't beat ourselves up for that. And then because self-love and self-compassion is good for our health. Actually, research shows, next slide, please, that having more self-compassion builds resilience in the face of adversity and helps people to recover more quickly from trauma or romantic separations. So studies have actually proven that this is practicing self-love and self-compassion can help build yourself up. When you're faced with disappointments, you can recover more quickly. So drawing on this scholarship of these professors in this field, they identify 3 components of this, and they are self-kindness, recognition of one's place in shared humanity, and mindfulness. Mindfulness practices that prompt you to take a step back, listen to your emotions, accept your emotions, and then moving forward. So when we practice self-love, here's just one way to do it. You can practice these techniques every day for 8 weeks, and you just keep going with it. The basic concept is identifying the moment, being present in the moment, accepting that feeling, and not trying to push it away and distract yourself, and remembering to be kind to yourself in that moment. So let's think about triggers. When we're triggered by something, You know, something's not going right, you reacted badly to something, your instinct might be to kind of beat yourself up for that, and also to kind of distract yourself and say, I'm going to do something else so I don't have to feel this way anymore. In this practice, they encourage you to accept that feeling and take it as a time to be kind to yourself. So practicing these activities on a regular basis can improve, have positive benefits on your health. If you're interested in more activities like this, the Greater Good in Action website from Berkeley Institute has a lot of self-love and self-compassion activities for groups, for your personal life, and for in the workplace as well. So I would encourage you to check that out. And finally, we have a great list here of resources for people who are in difficult situations in relationships, how to set boundaries, services for people in abusive situations. The other week, Renee and I went out to visit services to abused families, SAFE in Culpeper. They not only provide temporary transition services for people in difficult situations, but they also offer weekly empowerment groups, and those are in person and virtual. As Alan represents the Rappahannock Rapidan Community Services Prevention Group, and they offer a lot of resilience webinars and training, and I would encourage you to check those out. And then Healthy Culpeper, they are doing amazing things like webinars daily on different life tips and life skills. And I really encourage you to check those out. And finally, the Mental Health Association, if you're seeking further professional support, we have a provider directory. It's really cool because you can look up providers by different conditions. Say you suffer from ADHD, depression, anxiety, and also by the type of insurance you have. So please check that out for more professional support. And I think this is yes, here's more references, and I will share this with you all after the presentation if you're interested in reading more on some of these topics. These are really good websites. And now I will turn it back over to Renee for questions and answers. Thank you all.
Bridget, thank you so much. That was fabulous. I wanted to touch on one of the things that Bridget said, that idea of having an emotion. So in this self-care, basically, we've been in our bodies for however long we've been here. It's our job to be the expert in us, right? So if all of a sudden we're having these reactions that you're like, wait, where did that come from? Why am I that upset? It's good to sit in those emotions. Brene Brown, who has a lot there out on YouTube, talks about the difference between empathy and sympathy, and how in empathy, you're actually, she's talking about interacting with others. And in empathy, you are basically sitting with that person in their emotion, right? And feeling it with them for a while, as much as you can. And not going to sympathy where you're like, oh, I'm so sorry. Let's change this. Let's find a solution. I encourage you to be empathetic with yourself as well. So when you're having these emotions, when you are repeating this strange little pattern where you always end up, picking the wrong guy, or trusting somebody too much, sit in that feeling for a while. Now, I'm not talking for like months or years. If that's happening, contact Bridget and I, and we can find somebody to help you, but sit in that feeling to just let it be okay, right? Some people think that like sadness and anger and all those, they call them negative emotions. It's okay to sit in them for a while, Now, I will tell you, if you're angry, that usually covers either hurt or fear. Sit in that anger to figure out what you're really feeling, because once you figure that out, you won't have those outbursts anymore. And so being empathetic with yourself to figure out helps you figure out your boundaries, helps you make new patterns. But anyway, Bridget, Alan, and I have been talking and talking. What kind of questions do you all have? Or what would you like to share?